In my previous video, The Healing Power of Love and Kindness, I was moved by the support and encouragement I received from those around me. In the next chapter of my story, I want to share the healing impact of prayer and a profound moment that occurred when I looked outside my hospital window. This encounter changed my perspective on life and my condition. After a few days, the doctor had confirmed that in addition to having colon cancer, it seemed that I also had something called Lynch Syndrome. And so my first question to him was, what is Lynch Syndrome? And he said, well, Lynch Syndrome is a genetic risk factor for various cancers. And likely it turns out that my mother had Lynch syndrome, although when she had cancer, it was in 2008, and they weren't doing testing widely back then, although they knew about it. And so that was something else I had to be worried about, because people with Lynch syndrome are at risk for various cancers. And so, for instance, women that have Lynch syndrome are at risk of developing uterine and ovarian cancer, as well as breast cancer. In my case, I was at risk for colon cancer, skin cancer, uterine cancer. So I have to get testing all the time. And so the doctor said that we will be sending biopsies to the special lab, and we'll know a lot more about what stage you're in, and if chemotherapy is necessary, and when you need to meet with an oncologist. And this was just this news really hit me hard, and really had to start thinking about, well, this could be the end. I don't really know if I have 1 year to live, or 5 years to live, or 15 years to live. No way of knowing. But I do know one thing. In my life, the people that I know that are always going, I just want to relax. I just want to retire. I don't want to work. If I can only collect unemployment. If somebody else could provide for me. And I've noticed that these people die like flies. I first noticed this in the days of AIDS in the 1980s. These people who are like, fighting, I'm going to beat AIDS. These doctors aren't going to tell me when to die. I've got things to live for. I need to protect my community. These people lived. So I knew that I had to be proactive. I had to make my life mean something. And that I really wanted to extend myself to help other people. Because one of the best ways of accomplishing your goal is to make sure that your goals help other people. So I went into a variation of prayer, and I also went into a variation of what's known as guided imagery. And there was a meditation teacher named Belaruth Naparsak who was talking about guided imagery and remembering a time when you were out in nature and you felt just great. And that's the beginning of a way of getting you to a place and imagining the best for your whole life, or maybe the best for the next day or the next month or the next year. And so when they told me, you have cancer, we don't know what stage you're in, I started doing guided imagery, relaxing myself. And then I kept visualizing the doctor saying, Mr. Gettert, you do not need chemotherapy. And I would actually rehearse this in my mind. Going into the oncologist's office, I never met her. And I would just think, I'm meeting her, and she's saying, you don't need chemotherapy. You don't need chemotherapy. You don't need chemotherapy. Please, God, I want to wish for the best possible outcome, and I want the doctor to say no chemotherapy. I'm a big believer in prayer, and as a matter of fact, there were a few miracles that happened during my stint around the hospital. One of the most empowering stories was from my aunt. And my aunt is a born-again Christian, and she said to me, "Would you like me to say a prayer for you, Andrew?" And I really believe in the power of prayer and healing, even if you're not religious. But I am, so I said, "Yeah, I would love it if you say a prayer for me." And so her prayer went something like this: "Dear God, please pray for Andrew's healing. And please ensure, dear God, that Andrew has the best possible recovery." And I thought, I felt so much better after that. I felt like really good because I've not only prayed, I've actually studied prayer. And the most amazing thing about prayer, the more non-directed prayers are the ones that help people the most and in clinical studies provide the best results. So the worst kind of prayer is, "Dear Lord, buy me a Mercedes Benz." That's a terrible prayer. But a good prayer is, "Dear God," or "Dear Creator," or "Dear Nature, help the best possible outcome to occur." We don't really know what the best outcome is. There are people who go, they're on their deathbed. They go, "If I could just live another day, another week," but their body is already on the downswing, on the severe downswing. Well, in that case, if you're really at death's door, the best possible outcome might be to die and to pass away peacefully. So praying for the best possible outcome is the best prayer. So I would continually try to pray for the best outcome and see the oncologist say, "No chemo, no chemo." But before I left the hospital, one of the most amazing things happened. I was looking outside my window, and there was a red wagon. You know the little red wagon we all had as kids? This was a red wagon pulled by a nurse in a full gown, hat, and mask, face mask, pulling the little red wagon. And inside the little red wagon was a girl. And I would guess the girl was about 8 years old, maybe younger. You could tell from looking at her outside that she had no hair. Basically, she came out of the children's hospital for a little walk in nature. And she also had a hospital gown. She had gloves, and a hat, and a mask. And trailing the little red wagon was another nurse, fully gowned, trailing not one, but 2 IV poles. And they were trailing the little red wagon. And I thought, my God, what do I have to complain about? Imagine being an 8-year-old girl having to get chemotherapy from brain cancer. And then I thought, imagine being the family of that 8-year-old kid with brain cancer. I couldn't even imagine it. I wanted to share this part of my story because I learned the power of prayer is not about asking for specific material possessions, but in seeking the best possible outcome for oneself or others. And when I saw that little girl with cancer in her red wagon, it was a stark reminder of the challenges that others face. I learned about the importance of being proactive, making life meaningful, and extending myself to help others. If you'd like to see more videos like this, please comment below and be sure to like and subscribe to help us grow our channel. Thanks for joining us